Alright everyone, before we get into today's episode, I want to clear up a few things about this episode and about this new part. This is a direct sequel to the rewrite of the first season of the Pokemon anime, but I'm not going to take this series from the point of if we were rewriting the anime anymore. This is now its own separate universe. I feel that what happened in the first season drastically changed how Johto would play out, so we are in all new territory. With that being said, I will be doing a rewrite of the Pokemon anime as if Ash won the Johto League, and I will be doing that for every generation, so that's something to look forward to on the channel. This what if and that what if will be completely different, as I feel the character of Ash and the events in each version would be drastically different. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into what if Indigo champion Ash challenged the Johto League. We pick up with Gary Oak. He set out on his new journey of adventure in the Johto region. It's been about a week since Gary left, and he's made his way to his first stop, New Bark Town. Before Gary left Pallet Town, his grandfather, Professor Oak, told him he should stop by New Bark Town, as one of his old research assistants recently became the Pokemon professor of the Johto region. Gary arrives to the lab of this new professor, and he's really impressed. It seems that this lab is outfitted with the latest in Pokemon research technology. It is far different than his grandpa's lab, as Professor Oak prefers older, less technological methods. But Gary doesn't see anyone, so he calls out, "Professor Elm? Professor Elm?" Then, from the back of the lab, Gary hears, "Over here." Gary follows the voice, and eventually comes to a young man who seems to be very engaged with the work he's doing. So much so, he doesn't even look up at Gary. Gary tries to introduce himself, but he's interrupted by the professor. "Your starter Pokemon is on the table. It's in one of the balls." Gary, puzzled, says, "I'm sorry? What?" The professor, without even looking up, says, "They're on the table. The balls. They're organized by type. Grass, fire, water. Just choose your partner. It's okay." Gary realizes what's happening. The professor thinks Gary is a trainer here for their first starter Pokemon. Gary then yells, "Professor!" Professor Elm looks up. Gary thinks, finally. He says, "Professor, I'm not here for a Pokemon." Elm says, "You're not?" Gary says, "No. My name is Gary Oak, the grandson of Professor Oak." Professor Elm's demeanor changes from confusion to excitement at the realization of who Gary is. Elm immediately apologizes. "I'm sorry. I was expecting my first set of trainers to come and pick up their Pokemon today and start their Pokemon journey." Gary tells him, "Well, if that's the case, I wouldn't have my attention divided like that. What if I was someone who was looking to steal those Pokemon? Someone like, I don't know, Team Rocket?" Elm becomes nervous. "Yeah, you're right. We have had reports of them here in the Johto region lately, and the starter Pokemon are extremely rare, so they might come for them." Gary says, "I doubt it's that serious, but you should still be more aware." Elm says, "You're definitely right about that." Just then, from the front of the lab, someone calls, "Professor Elm!" Then another voice calls, and another voice. 3 different voices, all at once. Professor Elm says, "Oh, that must be the new trainers." And him and Gary head up front. There stands 3 trainers, all from New Bark Town. Vincent, Ethan, and Marina. They all introduce themselves, the professor and Gary, but then Vincent and Ethan immediately recognize Gary Oak and who he is. They are both kind of starstruck. Vincent and Ethan tell Gary that they saw him at the Indigo Plateau, and they ask why he is here. Gary, kind of offset by these 2 fanboys, says he's here to challenge the Johto League. Ethan is excited. Gary is kind of a hero to him, and the thought of Gary being a Johto while he's starting his Pokemon journey sends him into even more of a fanboy mode. But Vincent is the opposite. He's on Team Ash and comments, "You couldn't become champion like your friend Ash, so you come to Johto out of embarrassment? Well, don't worry, you'll lose here like you did there." Gary is kind of shocked by this kid. He doesn't know what to say. Vincent kind of reminds Gary of himself when he started out. Before anyone can reply, Vincent then grabs a Pokeball off the table, the one that's closest to him. He then says, "Professor Elm, these are the starter Pokemon, right?" Elm replies, "Yes." Vincent says, "Perfect. I don't need to know what it is." And he turns to Gary and says, "How about I hand you your first loss here in the Johto region, right here?" Gary looks at Vincent. "Why don't you get to know the Pokemon first? At least let it out of its ball." Vincent says, "So, I see. You're scared, trying to avoid battling me." All the while, Ethan and Marina are trying to tell Vincent to stop, but he's not listening, and he's telling Gary that he's every bit the failure that everybody else is talking about. It's no wonder, after all, he's the grandson of a second-rate professor. Gary couldn't stand a chance to him. Gary looks at Vincent. "Why do you want this, kid? Why do you seem so eager to battle me?" Vincent tells Gary that he knows Gary's kind. He's cocky attitude, and he's overconfident. "You're the kind of trainer that gives other trainers a bad name." Gary now realizes what this kid's problem. Gary says, "I see. That was the old me, kid. I know I was a jerk in the past, but that's not me anymore." Vincent tells Gary, "So now that someone calls you out, you say that that's not you? I don't believe it. Come on, battle me. You won't leave here until you do." Professor Elm tries to step in, but Gary stops him. It's clear Vincent won't listen to anyone, so I'm gonna have to battle him. Vincent says, finally, now I can show you for the failure that you really are. Gary says, okay kid, let's take this outside. So the two of them head outside and take their positions right in front of the lab. Outside, Marina and Ethan both try one more time to stop Vincent, and he refuses as he sends in his Pokemon for the first time. It's Chikorita. Gary says, okay, and he pulls out his Pokédex. He learns that Chikorita is a grass type. So, Gary says, how about this? I'll give you the type advantage, kid. And Gary sends in his Blastoise. This battle doesn't last long though, and slowly you can see the look on Vincent's face turn from overconfidence to disbelief. In the end, Gary and Blastoise win with minimum effort. Vincent recalls Chikorita, and out of his frustration, he tells Gary that he cheated. Vincent doesn't know how, but he knows that Gary cheated. He then runs off. Professor Elm tries to stop him, but it's too late. Vincent is gone. Marina tries to go after him, but Gary tells her, no, wait, let him go. He needs some time. Professor Elm tells everybody to come back inside the lab. Elm then sends out the last two Pokemon from their Pokeballs, a Totodile and a Cyndaquil. Ethan immediately gravitates towards Cyndaquil, while Marina takes to Totodile. Professor Elm then gives them both a Pokedex and their respective Pokeballs, but there is a problem. Vincent still needs his Pokedex and Pokeballs. Marina offers to take them to Vincent, as she is pretty close to him, but Elm isn't sure, as she's still a new trainer, and she might mess things up more than they already have been. Then, Gary makes an offer. What if he went with them? After all, he's done this before. He will take full responsibility of Marina. Now that Gary is in, Ethan volunteers too. Elm then agrees, since the three of them will be going, and if they do, then that means he can get back to his research. With that, the new trio heads towards Vincent's house. Once they get there, they find Vincent sobbing on his doorstep. Chikorita is there, trying to console its new trainer. When the three walk up, Vincent sees them, and once he notices Gary, he wipes the tears away, trying to play cool, insisting that his loss to Gary was a fluke, and he's going to win the next time. Gary tells Vincent that he hopes that they can battle again. Vincent is caught off guard by this. Gary says he thinks Vincent has the heart needed to be a great trainer. He just needs some more practice. But Vincent just thinks that this is Gary putting up a show for everyone to see. He knows the real guy. Marina then yells at Vincent for being so pig-headed. Then she hands him his Pokédex and Pokeballs. Vincent says, what's this? Marina says, you left in such a hurry that you forgot them. You need to register for the Johto League. Gary says, yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm heading to the Pokemon Center now to register. Ethan likes the sound of that, asking if he can join Gary, as he wants to register as well. Gary says, sure kid, why not? Marina wants to go with them too, and asks Vincent if he will join, but he refuses to go anywhere with Gary. Marina says, fine, suit yourself, and then they leave. The trio arrive at the Pokemon Center, and both Gary and Ethan register, but Marina doesn't. Ethan asks her why. Marina tells them that she actually wants to be a research assistant, not a trainer, but with the way Professor Elm acted today, and refusing to trust her, she decided that she would set off on her own journey, and meet as many Pokemon as possible to show up Professor Elm. After all, what does he know? His head is always in books. She will go and meet the real thing. Ethan then tells her they should travel together. Marina says why. Ethan tells her he wants to catch Pokemon, and she wants to meet Pokemon. It's a perfect match. Marina takes some time, but she eventually warms up to this idea. Ethan then turns to Gary. Do you think that we could travel with you? I mean, after all, we're both headed in the same direction. Gary tells Ethan that he had actually planned to travel alone. Then Ethan says, well, how about at least till Violet City? That's the site of the first gym of the Johto region. Gary looks at Ethan, and he can't take his enthusiasm. It reminds him of Ash. So he breaks down. He says, okay, but only until Violet City. This is even more excited for Ethan. He gets to walk with his hero, and he's going to get a chance to get to know him. With that, they head towards Violet City and the site of their first gym badge. Now we flip over to Ash and his friends. They've been traveling for about a week. Brock and Misty comment to Ash that it always seems like he's behind Gary. Ash, angry, asks, what do you mean? Brock tells Ash that it's just like last time. Gary is again ahead of Ash, and he's probably already earned his first badge. Ash tells Brock it's not his fault. If Professor Oak hadn't asked him to take the GS ball to Kurt in Azalea Town, then he could have caught up to Gary. Misty tells Ash that he actually might be able to close the gap, as there is a gym in Azalea Town. This excites Ash, as they had reached the point where they were met with a choice. Two roads, one to Violet City and the other one to Azalea Town. Ash was secretly thinking about going straight to Violet City to get a badge, even though Professor Oak had told him that Azalea Town needed to be his first stop. After all, Ash is the Kanto champion. In his eyes, that could get him some kind of free pass to do things how he wants, as long as they get done, of course. But now, Ash doesn't have to worry. He can do his assigned task, get a badge, and everyone is happy. And this choice proves to be fruitful, as along the way, Ash runs into his first Johto catch, Chikorita. And after struggling in a battle with it, in which even Charizard struggles, Ash, Misty, and Brock rush it to the Pokemon Center. And after Team Rocket fails in an attempt to capture Chikorita, and Ash saving its life, Chikorita is convinced to join his team. Now a few things here. Because Ash and his team are traveling a bit of a different route towards Azalea Town, Ash's timing to catch Heracross and Cyndaquil trail is off. So Ash and friends continue toward Azalea Town, but along the way is very mountainous, and Ash gets a chance at another catch while traveling through these mountains. This Pokemon is Gligar, and after a run-in with Team Rocket to where they too are trying to capture the Gligar in the area, and Ash and the individual Gligar teaming up to stop Team Rocket, it makes the choice to join Ash's team. This brings Ash to 5 members on his team. Moving on to the next stage of the journey, Ash and friends come to a dojo, and where the master has a scissor. After Ash meets the top student Shinjo of the dojo, Shinjo realizes Ash is the current Kanto champion. He demands a battle in which he wishes to test his Pokemon, a scissor just like his master. This trainer is very confident he will win due to his computer and its infinite amount of knowledge on trainers, especially Ash. Ash doesn't like his stuck-up attitude and the fact that he's always got his head in his computer. It reminds him of Gary, so he accepts this challenge. So Shinjo chooses to lead with his scissor, and even though Ash has only had it for a few weeks, he chooses to lead with his Gligar. Gligar has proven to be very resilient, and Ash has been spending a lot of time with it, and he's been getting to understand its strengths and weaknesses. The battle starts, and at first, Ash is on the ropes, as the trainer's extensive knowledge of Ash's battle style proves to be formidable. But this is where Ash's on-the-go battle style proves to be his greatest asset. Because of his adaptability in battle, it forces Shinjo to break a concentration from his computer and focus more on the battle, and he can't keep up with Ash. Shinjo then calls for a Metal Claw, but Ash counters it with a guillotine. Then, Gligar uses its small size to get in close to hit Scizor with a second guillotine, putting it down. After showing Shingo the error of relying on just tech to battle, the trio move on to Azalea Town. Their first stop is Kurt's house, but they first have to clear out Team Rocket from the Slowpoke well. They are gathering Slowpoke tails, but Ash, Pikachu, and Chikorita put an end to this pretty quickly. And as a gift for their help, Kurt rewards Ash, Brock, and Misty with some custom Pokeballs, after they go pick the apricorns, of course, in which Brock immediately uses it to catch himself a Pineco that's been following him since the forest. But now that all other distractions are out of the way, Ash sets his sight on the Azalea Gym. Upon entering, we're greeted by Bugsy, a bug-type trainer, who claims to be the authority on all bug-type Pokemon. Ash greets Bugsy and introduces himself. Bugsy immediately recognizes Ash as the Kanto champion and asks why he is here in Johto. Ash tells Bugsy after battling Lance of the Kanto Elite Four and learning that he was from Johto, he's here to find out how strong the other trainers of Johto are. Normally, Bugsy is confident in his abilities, but with this being a champion challenging him to an official league battle, it's kinda got his nerves up. But he has no choice. As a gym leader, he has to accept. So the two trainers take their position. This will be a 3-on-3 battle. Bugsy leads with his Spinarak, and Ash sends in his Chikorita. Bugsy sees this and is a little eased, thinking Ash made a mistake, not knowing that Ash is actually fully aware and is testing Bugsy. Chikorita and Ash have been battling a lot lately, and as a result, they are in perfect sync. Though Bugsy has the type advantage and the battle goes in his favor, Ash manages to put Spinarak down with a Sweet Smell and a newly learned Headbutt. This proves that Bugsy had a false sense of security, and he needs to be on guard. So Bugsy sends in his Metapod to play defense. This actually goes more in Bugsy's favor, and due to its battle with Spinarak, Chikorita is worn out and eventually loses to Metapod. But Ash is unfazed. He then chooses to send in his second newest capture, Gligar. This battle comes down to speed. Though Bugsy's Metapod is fast, Gligar's speed is greater. It manages to close out the battle with Metapod using a guillotine. Bugsy is a little bit more at ease now, because he gets to use his ace, as he sends in his Scyther. Ash is a little overconfident. He chooses to go with Gligar again, but this ultimately costs him. Even though Gligar is fast, Scyther is faster, and he manages to put Gligar down after using a combination of Sword Stance and Fury Cutter. Ash recalls Gligar, but is still unfazed. His confidence as the champion of Kanto is very noticeable, and Bugsy can see it. Ash then sends in his ace, Charizard. Bugsy is ready for this though, as he has the perfect defense for fire-type attacks, and after demonstrating it, Ash is able to see the weakness in it. As Ash readies his next attack, Bugsy prepares for his defense, but Ash then calls for a Fire Spin and orders Charizard to spread it over the battlefield. Once the flames settle and you can see the two Pokemon, a victory is clear. Charizard stands and Scyther falls. Even though his defense blocks head-on attacks, it can't deal with fire coming from all directions. This earns Ash his first Johto Gym badge, the Hive badge. Once Bugsy hands over the badge, he compliments Ash on his ability to break his defense. Bugsy also states that he was really nervous throughout their battle, but he's glad that he had it with Ash. Ash tells Bugsy it was a lot of fun, and Lance was right. Johto does have strong trainers. Bugsy asks Ash where they're off to next. Ash says Violet City and their gym. Bugsy says if you're headed in that direction, then there's a place that you should check out on the way. Alright everyone, that's it. Part 1 of What If Indigo Champion Ash challenged the Johto League. What do you guys think about it? How do you like the direction that this is going? How do you feel about Ash's team thus far? And what do you think about his first gym battle? And of course, the big question is, what team are you? Are you Team Ash or are you Team Gary? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to drop a like, as it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe. I'm doing my best to try and get to 2,000 subscribers before the end of August. And if you're interested in talking Pokemon what ifs, or if you've made some of your own, please head over to the Discord in the links below, as there's a lot of like-minded people in there, and we're looking to help everybody develop their own what if. And also, if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter. I post a lot of behind the scenes stuff there for the projects that I'm currently working on. So if you want to see what I'm working on in real time, that's the place to be. And also, don't forget to check the community tab, because I post a lot of polls there, giving you guys the opportunity to be active in the channel and the decisions that are being made. But anyway, with all that being said, my name is Ronan Charizard, and I will see you in the next video.